we'll pick it up from there. So let's proceed. Kenya National Innovation Agency was set up to promote, nurture, develop the innovation ecosystem. If you think about what that means, it's a lot of words. It's going to be IP management, it's going to be partnership, it's going to be licensing, it's going to be funding, it's going to be events, it's going to be agreements, it's going to be standards, it's going to be coordination, and so on and so forth. But leave today here knowing that we're going to concentrate by and large on two things. First, commercialization of research. Second, the startup ecosystem. Those two will probably be at the heart of what we're going to do over the next several years. And I'm going to try and explain what are we going to do in that regard. Not to say that we will do everything else, but this will be our pillars. Now, on commercialization, this is our target. If you ask me, after I leave office after about 4 years or so, all factors constant, I'd like, in the space of commercialization, to sustainably support commercialization of 1,000+ ideas or research products from our universities, from individuals, from research centers, from TVETs, from schools, and so on and so forth. When I say sustainably, is that by the time I leave office, I'd like us to have a stronger system that then enables us to scale those numbers going forward. That means the institutions would have stronger frameworks to do just the same. Second, on the startup ecosystem, this is my aspiration as Kenya. This is what we would like to do over the coming X number of years, is to discover or identify and then transform a set of startups. And I've put some numbers here that we're going to work with. First one is 10,000 idea stage or early stage startups. Second is talk about 1,000 growth stage startups. I'll define what exactly we mean by that. And finally, 100 high impact startups. When I say 10,000 idea stage, I'm looking for guys who didn't believe they could do it. Now they can do it. Who didn't know they can do it. Now they can do it. Who probably started or they imagined and we enabled them. Where are they? We're going to find them. They're in the high schools. They're in the 50+ universities. Where are they? They're in your organization. They're your employees, but probably they didn't know they could do it. And we need to catalyze that. All right? 10,000 is doable in 4 or 5 years. When I say growth stage, I mean the startups that I've just presented here. The next thing I would like to see is them scale. All right? And we need to find ways to partner with them. And I have articulated who am I going to work in that regard. Finally, when I say 100 high impact, who am I talking to? These days we're talking about Sandy. We're talking about M-Copa. All right? And the like. And these are potentially Trigger Foods has become very common. These are potentially scalable high impact startups. We can do 100 in 5 years. Sometimes it's because we don't know. Yesterday I was talking to Kamal from Craft Silicon and he talked a lot about Little, which he has helped establish and now he's a CEO. Potentially high impact. Where are they? We will find them, you and I. That's our second goal. First goal is around commercialization, 10,000, 1,000+, and then on the startup ecosystem. How are we going to do this? And I have some details below. Let's talk about commercialization support. Practically, what do we need to do? This is what Kenya wants to do. Let's look at the problem first. Kenya National Research Fund funds a lot of research. I looked at their data and found they funded over 500 research projects across the universities. And I know many, many other organizations that have funded. I have been in university myself. After the research, what happens regarding the invention disclosure? What percentage of the research gets really declared that we've discovered something? How much of that gets evaluated to assess the innovation value? All right, what is the commercial or scientific value? After that, what happens to the protection of intellectual property? And after that, do we build business cases or business models in order to develop business plans and commercial plans? And that will generate joint ventures, spin-offs, startups. The numbers drop significantly as you curve. And we need to fix that. Kenya is going to champion fixing of that. Now, in a practical way, I have listed about 7 things that we're going to do in the context of commercialization. Number 1 is around incubation and innovation hubs. You see, I'd like to work with as many partners as possible to establish incubation and innovation hubs in schools. I start with schools. Never underestimate the power of an incubation hub in a school. A high school in Garissa. 2 is TVETs. Never underestimate the power or amount of research and innovation that is happening in the TVETs, universities and research centers. Let me tell you, it's not going to cost you anything, Mr. University. Don't worry. I built an innovation hub in University of Nairobi. It's now worth 300 million with partners, 0 funding from university. It's doable. It's achievable. and I'm looking for partners for that. It doesn't have to be aligned to a particular university. It can be in the ecosystem. It can be in a county government and so on and so forth. One, this is where private sector becomes comfortable partnering with universities. It's not in the Vice Chancellor's office. We do MOUs there, that's fine. But in these hubs, they become neutral places where creativity and energy is spurred and energized. Number two is competencies around innovation. You see, we are campaigning now for competence-based curriculum, wonderful. But I'd like us to ride on that to build innovation competencies. I want a high school student who is able to articulate a business model or value proposition very well. I want a high school student who can tell me what design thinking is or what is user-centered design. And I'd like to build capacities in faculty, in teachers, in students and learners, riding on what we're talking about, STEM and competence-based curriculum. I am looking forward to building a Kenya commercialization academy, which helps to build more the TOT models and build innovation leaders. Number three is around technology transfer offices. You see, Kenyatta University, I think you've done very well. The technology transfer office kind of is up and running. And I'd like to see that at least in 4 years, we'll have probably 40% of our institutions having. I can understand when we may not be able to all have technology transfer offices, but at least we should be able to get to about 40%. Those who don't have, we're going to make efforts trying to establish them. Those who have, let's try to stabilize and enhance them. What I mean by technology transfer offices, this is where IP issues are addressed. This is where business models are designed. This is where partnerships are managed. I cannot do all the agreements from Kenya, but they can be done in all universities with various partners. I am hoping that we're going to strengthen institutional IP frameworks, and this is really deep in my mind. You know, I worked in University of Nairobi for some time, but if I built a startup as a faculty member, was I going to get promoted? No. But do you know how hard it is to build it? If I publish 10 papers, will I get promoted? Now, no wonder I know some professors who come up with some inventions and they choose to keep them under the table until they retire. Why? The incentives. It's about incentives. Okay? So, the skills, the incentives, the tools. I'd like to ask this question. When I was a first-year student, I took a course on communication, on economics. Why didn't I take one on IP management? Because then probably my thought process would have shifted. And if the next generation is about commercializing intangible assets, then we have to make it in the bloodstream. It's going to be part and parcel of the bloodstream of a student. And I'll look to build some annual report as Kenya to show how we are progressing in each of these. The policies, that is for Kenya. We're going to think through working with partners on how we enhance the policies for national innovation exploitation. One other product that I want to build is what I'm going to call an innovation bridge. You see, if I come up with an innovation in a university, in a research center, how do I get it to market? I can understand when a faculty member doesn't have the methodology to think through about commercialization. But if I got into a marketplace of my innovation and I can create a profile and I put all the details about my innovation and what is it exactly that I am looking for, and I can get partners who also sign up and the system can match us, then in a little while I find an industrialist who is based in Kisumu trying to partner with a researcher in Taita Taveta just because of a digital platform. South Africa has done it very well, and they've got something they call an innovation bridge. And I've started engaging the UK partners who are right in the room, and we're going to start working on a platform like this, right this in December. Commercialization Forum. One of the things I'm going to try and promote on an annual basis, and I'll articulate it a little later, is that I want us to assemble together from our universities, our researchers, our research centers, our legal practitioners, our industrialists, our financial institutions. We're going to gather together and start asking, what are we failing in? What are we succeeding in? What is the global trend? And so on and so forth. Let's learn from each other. Well, who is succeeding? Who is thriving? And why? And then that way, we can measure ourselves on an annual basis. What are we accomplishing? So this is what I'd like our institutions to think about. And I've got three representations. Masai Mara, you're here. University of Nairobi, you're here. Jomo Kenyatta, you're here, and I think one more, I'm not sure exactly who. Strathmore, of course, I can see represented here. I'd like to see well-defined institutional internal policy to support, encourage, and enable commercialization. If you don't do it, I know what's going to catch up. And I'll tell you one of them. University Funding Board. because they're now going to be focused more on output. It's not the number of students. And this you've got to do. We're happy, we will support whichever way we can, but every institution has to build contextualized ones. Researcher incentives, capacity building, enhancement of our curricula, tools and templates that faculty and students are going to use, technology transfer offices, incubation hubs. That we have to do. We have to do. Let me go to the startup ecosystem. Now, there's a lot we can learn from other countries. Startup Chile, Ireland, Enterprise Ireland, Startup Nation Israel, Startup India. I know UK has done an amazing job, and so on and so forth. The templates are there, all right? And what we're going to try and do is to build the local version. Over the last few years, I think we've done an incredible job. There are more than 100 innovation hubs in the country, spread across the country, well, not very evenly. And yeah, some of them, of course, are still startups. They're trying to figure it out. Private sector is coming in. We've got a number of VCs in the ecosystem. Angel investor network is growing. I think that's an amazing thing. The issue now is coordination and amplification and stabilization. And what are we going to try and do? One, we have started building a database of startups. And I know a number of partners have been trying to do something like this. But Kenya, which has a mandate, a national mandate by an act of parliament, is going to have to lead this effort. It's going to have to lead this effort working with as many partners as possible. That's number one. So the effort has begun. And we're now building this database where, as a startup, you can get as many partnerships as you can using that kind of a database. And I'm looking for partners to make that happen even more. Number two is that I want us to grow the investment pipeline. You see, we are very good at going to Syokimau and buy a piece of land. Investment, brilliant, nothing wrong with that. But I'd like us to also strengthen the narrative of investing in the high-risk startups that we have here, which have high potential. All I need to do is to learn how to do it well. And once I get it right, I will do it. Personally, I have invested in a few startups. I've taken the risk. Some of them have worked and some of them have flopped. But on average, I think I'm doing very well. So I'd like to see more funds going into startups. Now, innovation hubs sustainability, and I mentioned this a little bit. There's a lot of effort in setting up innovation hubs. Of course, people wake up one morning and they set up an innovation hub in Eldoret. Why they do it, what they're targeting, how they're aligned to the local ecosystem, local university, local development authorities, I am not sure. When I say stability and sustainability, I'm not just talking about money, their ability to make money or being funded, but it's how well they are aligned and they specialize and apply best practices. Then it's easy to scale. I'm hoping to see a stronger angel investor network. And I did mention this. I think there are a number of partners that are working in this area, and we'd like to find a way how to stabilize and strengthen and make a strong culture of angel investment in Kenya. And then on the policy environment, we've been working closely with Senator Sakaja. I hoped he would make it, but he had another engagement around the startup bill. Of course, there is a lot of improvement and a lot of enhancement that has to happen. That's a classic example. And we've got other policies that we continue to enhance under Kenya. Finally, I want to tell you about a dream and an idea. And based on the dance that I introduced this morning, I hope you will believe me and we will go crazy together. This is exactly why I introduced the dance. All you need to do is to believe in what I'm telling you. And you don't think that I am crazy, therefore you're not crazy too. And when you're not crazy and it becomes deep in you, you're going to influence your neighbor and we will all become crazy. Sooner than later, the whole country is crazy. And this is what we're going to do. Over the last 4 or 5 years, I supported the establishment of Nairobi Innovation Week. And a number of us have participated. Great idea. Now it's time for Kenya Innovation Week. Can you all say great? It's time for Kenya Innovation Week. And something that has a national outlook. And what we're going to do is to transform the experiences we've had in Nairobi Innovation Week into Kenya Innovation Week. The details of this, I honestly don't know. But I have some idea. The ideas I have is the Startup Kenya Summit. This is where I want to see in a room investors from all over the world and the startups that we have tried to build polished, ready to attract funding, both from local and international community. Second is that I'm looking at the commercialization summit. This is where, madam from Jomo Kenyatta, you're going to be in the room and you shine based on the experiences you've had. What has worked, what has not worked. Let's get case studies from across the globe. Let's get practitioners. Let's get inspired. Let's build the skills we need. And we measure our progress on an annual basis. This will be the platform that will be able to tell you whether we're doing well as an institution, we're doing well as a country, and we're doing well as a continent. It's going to take 12 months to plan. We're not going to do something fancy, just wake up and do it. It's going to take us 12 months to plan. And I need partners and friends to make that happen. It's going to take partnerships. It's going to take collaboration. We set some goals and work together towards them. It's going to be about we. It's not Kenya. It's not Tonny. It's we. And everybody could have to play some role, influence someone else, and we create a crazy movement of dancers. The board has approved the establishment of a National Innovation Advisory Committee, which is going to help Kenya around resource mobilization and partnerships. And they've also approved the establishment of a National Innovation Technical Committee, which is going to help us think through the details of that forum that I just described, among other things. I'm inviting you to join. We're looking for volunteers. We're looking for partners, corporates, individuals. Welcome, and thank you very much.